Every day in the world ocean, more than 100,000 merchant ships, thousands of cruise liners, warships, and fishing trawlers sail. These are real floating cities where millions live and work. And like in any city, waste is produced on every ship. A lot of waste. Imagine a large cruise liner with 7,000 passengers and crew. In a week, such a ship produces about 150 tons of garbage, 1,000 cubic meters of wastewater, and hundreds of kilograms of food waste. Multiply that by tens of thousands of ships around the world. By expert estimates, the world fleet annually produces about 10 million tons of solid waste. That's the weight of about 1,500 Eiffel Towers. Ship waste is divided into several categories, and each is dangerous in its own way. Solid waste, plastic bottles and bags, cardboard, glass, metal, textiles. On a large ship, this is the main mass of waste, up to 100 tons per week. The main problem here is plastic. It decomposes for centuries, breaking down into microparticles that enter the food chain. Food waste, remnants of meals, peels, spoiled products. Organic matter decomposes quickly, but in large quantities attracts parasites and disrupts local ecosystems. On a cruise liner, up to 3 tons of food waste form per day. Wastewater, black water from toilets with bacteria and pathogens, and gray water from showers, sinks. On a ship where 7,000 people live, that's more than 1 million liters per week. An Olympic-sized pool of dirty water every 5 days. Oil-containing waste, used engine oil, bilge water, fuel residues. 1 liter of engine oil can contaminate 1 million liters of seawater. On merchant ships, hundreds of liters of such oil accumulate per voyage. Hazardous waste, batteries with heavy metals, mercury-containing fluorescent lamps, medical waste, chemicals. A battery discarded in the ocean poisons 100 cubic meters of water. Mercury from 1 lamp can contaminate a lake of average size. Where does all this go? In 2018, scientists discovered in the Pacific Ocean a garbage patch the size of France. A large part of it is waste from ships. Dozens of kilograms of plastic are found in the stomachs of dead whales. Sea turtles die after swallowing bags they mistake for jellyfish. The history of ship waste disposal is a story of the struggle between economic gain and environmental responsibility. For centuries, the ocean was a free dumping ground. Today, there are strict rules and technologies, but do they work? To understand this, you need to look at history, to the days when all the trash was simply thrown overboard. For thousands of years, the ocean was a vast dumping ground for sailors. The principle was simple. All the useless stuff was thrown overboard. The ocean seemed so huge that people believed it would swallow anything and in any quantity. In the era of sailing ships, this did not lead to catastrophes. Ships were wooden, waste was organic, and the fleet was small. But the Industrial Revolution changed everything. Steamboats began dumping tons of ash and slag into the atmosphere. Plastic appeared, a material that doesn't decompose. The number of ships grew by orders of magnitude, and all of this kept getting dumped into the sea. Until the 1970s, most ships didn't have waste processing systems at all. Garbage was collected in bags and dumped into the ocean. Sewage was discharged directly. Tankers washed their cargo tanks in the open sea, dumping thousands of tons of oil-containing water. This was standard practice. The turning point came in 1967. The tanker Torrey Canyon ran aground off the coast of Britain, and 120,000 tons of oil spilled into the ocean. The oil slick stretched for hundreds of kilometers along the coast. Dozens of thousands of seabirds and animals died. The disaster made headlines around the world and forced governments to act. In 1973, the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, MARPOL, was adopted. This was the first serious international treaty regulating how ships handle waste. The convention banned discharges of oil, chemicals, and most kinds of garbage, and it established protected areas. MARPOL divides pollution into 6 categories. We're interested in 3 main ones. Plastic is banned from discharge completely, wherever you are, even 1,000 kilometers from land. Oil and oil-containing mixtures are also banned. Food waste can only be discharged outside 12 miles from shore, shredded, and while the ship is moving. Sewage is allowed to be discharged only after treatment or outside the 12-mile zone. In special regions, the Mediterranean Sea, the Baltic Sea, Antarctica, the requirements are even stricter. There, almost any discharge is forbidden. Every vessel must keep waste logs. They record every operation: when waste was formed, how it was treated, when it was discharged or handed ashore. When entering port, inspectors check the logs. Any discrepancies give grounds for investigation. Penalties for violations are huge. In 2016, the cruise line Princess Cruises was fined $40 million for systematically discharging oil-containing waste and falsifying records. The captain and the chief engineer received prison terms. The United States, Europe, and Australia are especially strict. Penalties run into the millions of dollars. But passing a law is one thing, and getting everyone to follow it is another. In the open ocean, enforcement is almost impossible. Ships under convenient flags often ignore the rules. Many developing countries lack the resources to police them. New monitoring technologies are emerging. Satellites track oil spills. Automatic identification systems log ships' movements. Drones patrol coastal waters. Environmental organizations publish company rankings and conduct independent monitoring. But even the strictest laws only work if there are technologies to enforce them. What happens to waste aboard a modern vessel before it makes it to shore? A modern large ship isn't just a vessel, it's a whole floating waste processing complex. Here, systems run that could serve a small city on land. Let's take a look inside and see what happens to waste from the moment it appears. It all starts with sorting. Modern ships have special containers for different types of waste: plastic, paper, glass, metal, food scraps, hazardous waste. Crew members go through mandatory training on what goes where. Colorful charts hang on the walls. This isn't just for show. Getting sorting right is crucial for recycling later on. Plastic, glass, and metal go to compactors, powerful presses that squeeze waste into dense blocks the size of a suitcase. This reduces volume by 5 to 10 times. The blocks are packed, labeled, and stored in special rooms until they arrive at port. On a large cruise liner, hundreds of such blocks accumulate in a week. Paper and cardboard are also pressed, but separately. On some ships, there are paper shredders. They produce material that can be used as packaging or insulation right on board. Food waste is treated differently depending on where the ship is. If the ship is out in open sea, more than 12 miles from shore, the waste is ground in special crushers to particles smaller than 25 millimeters and discharged into the ocean during transit. Sounds harmless, but even organic waste in large amounts creates problems. It attracts predators, disrupts ecosystem balance. Bioreactors are installed more and more on modern liners, devices that process food waste right on board. Organic material is fed into the reactor, where heat and bacteria turn it into compost or biogas. The process takes 24 hours. The compost can be used in the ship's gardens or taken ashore as fertilizer. Biogas is used to generate energy. Incinerators, waste-burning furnaces, are used to burn unsorted waste and hazardous waste. These are huge installations operating at temperatures above 1,000 degrees. At that temperature, bacteria, viruses, and toxins are destroyed. The volume of waste is reduced by a factor of 90. Only ash remains, kept on board and handed over at ports. But waste-to-energy plants also create a problem. They release emissions into the atmosphere. The smoke contains carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter. Modern plants are equipped with filtration systems, but it's impossible to fully purify the exhaust gases. Therefore, many countries limit the use of waste incineration plants. The system to treat it on a modern vessel is a full-fledged treatment plant. Black water from toilets is collected in special tanks. From there, they go to biological reactors, where special bacteria break down organic substances. This process is similar to how municipal wastewater treatment works. After biological treatment, the water goes through mechanical filtration. Solid particles are removed. Then chemical treatment follows. Disinfection with chlorine or ultraviolet light to destroy pathogenic microorganisms. At the outlet, the water must meet strict purity standards. The levels of bacteria, suspended solids, and chemicals are measured by special sensors. Only after complete treatment can the water be discharged into the ocean, and even then, not everywhere. In ports and near the coast, even treated water cannot be discharged. In Antarctica, any discharges are forbidden. Everything is stored on board. Gray water is treated similarly, but the process is simpler. It has less organic matter and fewer pathogenic microorganisms. However, gray water contains detergents, shampoos, and grease. The treatment systems remove fats by flotation. Air bubbles lift fat particles to the surface, where they are collected. Oil-containing waste, ballast water, and used oil passes through separators. These are devices that rely on the density difference between oil and water. The treated water can be discharged if the oil content is less than 15 parts per million. Separated oil is stored on board and handed over at ports as hazardous waste. Hazardous waste, batteries, lamps, chemicals, medical waste, are collected in special sealed containers, labeled and stored in a separate compartment. On board, no operations are performed with them, only safe storage until they are handed over to specialized companies on shore. All this requires space, energy, maintenance. On a large cruise liner, the waste processing systems occupy an entire deck. Dozens of specialists work there. Megawatts of energy are consumed. But that is the price of being able to sail the oceans without turning them into a dump. However, all this technology works only until arrival at port. What happens next? When the ship enters port, the next stage of waste transport begins. Everything accumulated on board during the voyage, compressed plastic blocks, drums of used oil, containers with hazardous waste, must be transferred to shore. Sounds simple, but in practice this is a complex logistics operation. In every major port, there must be facilities for receiving ship waste. This is a MARPOL convention requirement. Specialized companies with licenses to handle waste provide reception services. Garbage trucks, sewage suction tanks, and containers for hazardous waste pull up to the vessel. The ship's captain notifies the port in advance about the types and amounts of waste that need to be surrendered. The port coordinates the time and place of the operation. When the ship docks, representatives of the receiving company board the vessel, check documents, and inspect the waste. Everything must match what was declared. Solid waste, compressed blocks of plastic, metal, and paper, are unloaded by crane into containers on the quay. Each block is weighed and recorded. The ship receives a receipt showing the exact weight and type of the waste handed over. This receipt is a legal document confirming that the waste has been handed over legally. Wastewater is pumped out by special tanks through hoses. On large ships, the tanks hold hundreds of cubic meters. The pumping takes several hours. The water is sent to city treatment facilities for further processing. Oil-containing waste is received in separate tanks. These are hazardous wastes that require special handling. They are sent to specialized facilities for recycling or disposal. Used oil can be regenerated, cleaned and reused, or burned in industrial furnaces with emission cleaning systems. Hazardous wastes, batteries, lamps, chemicals, are transferred in special hermetically sealed containers. They are accepted by companies licensed to work with toxic. The reception and disposal of waste from a large cruise ship can run tens of thousands of dollars for one port call. For shipping companies, that's a major expense. And here arises the temptation to save money. The quality of port reception facilities varies widely. In developed countries, the US, Europe, Australia, the infrastructure is top-notch. Modern equipment, trained staff, strict controls. The process is fast and efficient. In developing countries, the situation is often different. Many ports lack sufficient capacity to receive waste. The equipment is outdated. The staff are not trained. Controls are weak. Ships may wait for days until the only tank for pumping out sewage becomes available. Or they may not be able to hand over some types of waste at all because there is simply no one to take it. This creates a vicious circle. A ship docks at a port without reception facilities. Waste builds up on board. The tanks overflow. The next port is a week away. What is the captain to do? Officially, store the waste on board. In practice, there is a temptation to break the rules. The European Union has found an interesting solution to this problem. Under an EU directive, all ships entering European ports must dispose of waste regardless of whether their tanks are full. They don't pay for the amount of waste they deliver, but a fixed fee included in port charges. This eliminates the financial incentive to dump rubbish at sea before entering the port. Where do waste materials go after they're unloaded ashore? Plastics, metal, glass, and paper ideally go to recycling. Plastic is shredded, melted, and turned into granules for producing new products. Metal goes for remelting. Glass is crushed and used again. Paper and cardboard are recycled into pulp, but reality is often far from ideal. Shipboard waste is contaminated with salt, petroleum products, and other substances. It's harder to recycle than ordinary municipal waste. Many recycling facilities refuse to take it. As a result, a significant portion of ship waste still ends up in landfills or incineration plants anyway. Food waste, if offloaded ashore, goes to composting or biogas production. In some ports, it's used as pig feed or to make fertilizer. The problem of port reception facilities is one of the main issues in the ship waste management system. You can have the strictest laws, equip ships with the most modern systems, but if ports have nowhere to dispose of waste, or it's too expensive and time-consuming, the system won't work. The international community is trying to solve this problem. Funds are being invested to modernize ports in developing countries. Standards are being developed for reception facilities. Regional agreements for shared use of infrastructure are being created. But for now, the system is far from perfect. That means, despite all the laws and technologies, a significant portion of ship waste still ends up illegally in the ocean. Laws exist on paper. Technologies are implemented on ships. Ports are equipped with reception facilities. But what happens in reality when a ship is hundreds of kilometers from shore, far from prying eyes? The answer is not encouraging. A significant portion of ships continue to break the rules. The economics of breaking the rules are simple and harsh. Dumping waste in port costs tens of thousands of dollars. Dumping it overboard at sea is free. The chances of being caught are low. Fines, if caught, can be huge, but many captains and ship owners are willing to take the risk. The classic scheme looks like this. The ship accumulates waste during the voyage. Before entering port, at night, at sea, the crew quietly dumps bags of rubbish overboard. Logbooks record that the waste is stored on board. In port, they show nearly empty containers and pay the minimal amount for accepting a small amount of waste. Inspectors check the documents. Everything looks legal. With oil-containing waste, the situation is even worse. To bypass control systems, ships use the so-called magic pipes, bypass hoses through which contaminated water is discharged overboard, bypassing separators and accounting systems. Sensors show that the water is being cleaned to standard, but oil is actually getting into the... The investigation showed that ships systematically dumped oil-containing waste through bypass systems, and logbook entries were falsified. One of the mechanics became a whistleblower. The company was fined $40 million and placed under supervision with an independent auditor appointed. But that was a rare case when offenders were caught. Most go unpunished. The control problem is fundamental. The ocean is huge. There are thousands of ships, and patrol ships and aircraft are in short supply. Satellites can detect large oil spills, but they won't notice a dumped bag of trash or a small discharge of used oil. Ships under friendly flags are a special problem. Liberia, Panama, the Marshall Islands provide the ability to register ships with minimal requirements and oversight. Many ship owners choose these flags precisely because they don't ask too many questions there. When such a vessel breaks the rules, holding it to account is difficult. The flag country isn't interested in investigating. The fishing fleet is the most unregulated sector. Thousands of fishing vessels operate for months in the open ocean. Worn-out nets are simply thrown overboard. Experts estimate that about 640,000 tons of abandoned fishing gear end up in the ocean each year. These ghost nets have been catching and killing fish, turtles, dolphins, and birds for decades. New automatic identification systems allow tracking ship movements, but they do not show what happens on board. Patrol drones monitor coastal waters, but their range is limited. Satellite surveillance is developing, but it cannot yet track all violations. Environmental organizations are trying to fill the gaps. Sea Shepherd patrols the oceans on its ships, documents violations, and passes the information to authorities. Greenpeace publishes company rankings and runs campaigns against violators. But this is a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of the problem. The culture on ships also matters. On many vessels, crews work 6 to 10 months without breaks, in harsh conditions and for little pay. Environmental issues are not a priority for them. The captain is under pressure from the ship owner to cut costs. The mechanic is overloaded with work. There is no time to follow all procedures. It is easier to dump trash overboard. There are also objective difficulties. The vessel is on a long voyage and stops at ports where there are no reception facilities or they are overloaded. Waste accumulates, storage fills up. The next port with proper infrastructure is in 2 weeks. What to do? Officially, wait and store. In practice, many violate the rule. Changes in culture, training crews, and fostering environmental responsibility. Some companies are moving in the right direction. Leaders in the cruise industry are investing in advanced waste recycling systems, publishing environmental reports, and setting ambitious goals to reduce pollution. But such companies are still a minority. The truth is that as long as breaking the rules is more profitable than following them, violations will continue, and the ocean will keep bearing the consequences of human greed and irresponsibility. Every bag of trash discarded, every liter of oil, every ton of plastic has consequences. The ocean is not a bottomless pit that will swallow everything. It's a living ecosystem, and it's dying before our eyes. Let's start with the most obvious: plastic pollution. In the Pacific Ocean, drifting between California and Hawaii, lies the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Its area is over 1.5 million square kilometers, about 3 times the size of France. Here there are about 80,000 tons of plastic. 46% of the mass is fishing nets. The rest are bottles, bags, containers, and packaging from ships. Plastic does not decompose. Under the sun and waves, it breaks down into ever smaller particles, microplastics. Particles smaller than seabirds mistake pieces of plastic for food and feed them to their chicks. In the stomachs of albatrosses found dead on remote islands, investigators find lighters, bottle caps, and pieces of nets. The chicks die of hunger with stomachs full of plastic. Sea turtles confuse plastic bags with jellyfish, their main food. The swallowed bag blocks the digestive system. The turtle slowly dies of hunger. It is estimated that plastic is in the stomachs of more than 50% of sea turtles. Whales and dolphins are also affected. In 2019, a dead whale was found in the Philippines with 40 kilograms of plastic in its stomach. 40 kilograms is the weight of a 6-year-old child. In 2018, in Thailand, a whale swallowed 80 plastic bags and died. Microplastics enter the food chain. Plankton eat microparticles. Small fish are eaten by predators. Predators we eat. Studies show that microplastics are found in seafood that ends up on our tables. They are found in human blood, in breast milk, in the placenta. Health effects are still being studied, but they are unlikely to be harmless. Oil pollution creates other problems as well. An oil slick on the surface of the water blocks oxygen from reaching the water. Under it, fish and marine animals suffocate. Oil coats the feathers of seabirds, depriving them of waterproofing. The birds lose the ability to fly, they get cold, and drown. Major oil spills but no less dangerous is chronic pollution caused by thousands of small illegal discharges. It is estimated that about 6 million tons of oil from various sources enter the ocean every year. Half of that comes from the everyday operations of ships. Sewage, even partially treated, contains fertilizers and organic matter. In high concentrations, they trigger algal blooms, eutrophication. The algae grow, consuming oxygen. Dead zones are created, areas of the ocean where oxygen is so low that fish and other organisms cannot survive. There are more than 400 such zones in the world's oceans. Invasive species carried in ballast water destroy local ecosystems. A classic example is the zebra mussel, a mollusk that spread from the Caspian Sea to the Great Lakes of North America. It reproduced so quickly that it displaced native species, clogged the water intakes of power plants, and caused billions of dollars in damage. Chemicals from ships accumulate in bottom sediments. Heavy metals from batteries, mercury from lamps, toxic paints. All of it settles on the seabed and poisons marine flora and fauna for decades. In some port zones, toxin concentrations are so high that fish from there are dangerous to eat. Ghost nets are a separate disaster. Synthetic nets don't decompose for centuries. They drift with the current, snag on reefs, keep catching and killing. Fish are caught in the nets. Ghost nets kill hundreds of thousands of marine animals each year. Coral reefs are especially vulnerable. Pollution, warming of ocean water, and physical damage from ship anchors. All of this kills corals. The Great Barrier Reef in Australia has lost more than half of its coral cover in the last 30 years. Caribbean reefs are degrading at an alarming rate. Reefs are not just pretty pictures for divers. They protect the coastline from storms and erosion. They serve as spawning grounds for fish. About a quarter of all marine species depend on reefs. The loss of reefs means the collapse of fisheries and a threat to the food security of billions of people. The ocean produces more than half of the oxygen on the planet. Phytoplankton in surface waters photosynthesize, releasing oxygen. Pollution kills phytoplankton. Less phytoplankton means less oxygen. The problem of ship waste isn't just a problem for marine animals. It is a threat to human survival. But not all is lost. Technology exists. Solutions are known. The question is whether we can muster the will to apply them. The picture looks grim, but humanity isn't standing still. Around the world, technologies are being developed that could dramatically change the ship waste situation. The question isn't whether we can solve the problem, but whether we will manage to do it in time. The concept of a zero-waste ship is becoming a reality. Everything is recycled on board or reused. Plastic is melted and turned into new items: containers, furniture, parts. Glass is crushed and used as an abrasive or insulating material. Metal is compacted for subsequent remelting. Modern bioreactors process organic waste into compost and biogas in just a few hours. The compost is used in shipboard gardens or pressed into bricks for sale as fertilizer. Biogas is used to generate electricity or heat. The cycle is complete. Waste becomes a resource. Next-generation wastewater treatment systems produce water so clean that it can be drunk. Reverse osmosis technology and multi-stage filtration remove virtually all pollutants. Some new cruise liners reuse treated water for technical needs, watering plants, and even to replenish drinking water supplies. Plasma gasifiers are a revolutionary waste-to-energy technology. Garbage is placed in a chamber, where at temperatures above 10,000 degrees it is converted into synthesis gas, a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide. This gas can be used as fuel. The only inert slag remains, which is safe and can be used in construction. This technology is already used at shore-based facilities, and several ships plan to adopt it. Artificial intelligence helps optimize waste management. Machine learning-based systems analyze data and forecast how much waste is produced, when to start recycling. Blockchain technologies are used to track waste from its creation to final disposal. Each operation is recorded in a distributed database that cannot be tampered with. This provides full transparency and practically eliminates violations. Several ports and shipping companies are already testing such systems. Drones and autonomous vessels patrol the oceans, collecting floating trash. The Ocean Cleanup Organization has developed a barrier system that collects plastic from ocean currents. Initial tests have shown that the technology works. Plans are to deploy dozens of such systems in different parts of the ocean. Biodegradable materials replace plastic. Packaging made from seaweed is being developed that fully decomposes in a few weeks. Edible bags and containers are appearing. Some cruise companies have already switched to such materials for disposable tableware and packaging. The approach to ship design is changing. Previously, waste disposal issues were addressed last. Now they are built into the design phase. Ships are designed to minimize waste, maximize recycling, and achieve zero discharge. International cooperation is strengthening. Regional agreements for the shared use of infrastructure are being created. Developed countries fund the construction of reception points in developing countries. Sharing technology and know-how is becoming the norm. Public awareness is changing too. The new generation demands environmental responsibility. Passengers choose companies with a good environmental reputation. Investors consider ESG factors: environmental, social, and governance. Companies that ignore environmental issues lose customers and investments. Some companies go further and turn eco-friendliness into a competitive advantage. Hurtigruten is building hybrid ships that run on batteries and biogas. Celebrity Cruises is investing in solar panels and heat recovery systems. MSC Cruises is implementing advanced exhaust gas cleaning and wastewater treatment systems. Standards and certification schemes are emerging. Green Marine, Clean Shipping Index, and other programs assess the environmental performance of ships and companies. High ratings give access to port incentives, attract customers, and boost reputation. But technology is only a tool. The main thing is political will and economic incentives. We need tougher laws and real enforcement. We need investment in port infrastructure. We need to make following the rules more profitable than breaking them. Some propose radical measures. Mandatory video surveillance on all ships with data transmitted in real time. Satellite monitoring of every vessel. Huge fines. Not thousands, but millions of dollars for each violation. Criminal liability not only for captains, but also for ship owners and company executives. Others bet on market mechanisms, preferential port fees for ships meeting high environmental standards, green bonds to finance fleet modernization. The road ahead will be long. There are more than 100,000 merchant ships in the world, and most of them were built decades ago. Modernization will require trillions of dollars and decades, but there is no alternative. The ocean can't wait. Each of us can make a difference. Choose companies with a good environmental reputation. Demand that manufacturers reduce plastic packaging. Support organizations that protect the oceans. Spread information about the issue. The ocean covers 70% of our planet. It regulates the climate, produces oxygen, feeds billions. Its health is our health. Its future is our future. And this future depends on the choices we make today. The technology